Greetings, campers. I hope you are staying warm, because if you're like me and you live in the northern hemisphere, it is really cold. There is lots of wind, lots of snow. And if you're living in the southern hemisphere, just know I wish I could be there too. For the month of January, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the legends and stories of the ladies in white. Why are there so many? What is the reasoning behind so many women dying and coming back in white clothing, usually dresses? Is there a theme? Is there any similarities? Well, that's what we're going to discuss about. So grab your favorite drink, get extra close by the fire, but not too close, and I will share with you my first personal introduction to a lady in white, which a lot of us probably have already heard of, and that is La Llorona. Now, the version I first heard was that of a woman who had married a man and bore him 3 children. She was a dutiful wife. She loved her husband, loved her children, loved her family. She was actually quite beautiful herself, and she had many suitors, but she chose him. And she loved her husband very, very much. She put all her trust in him. And unfortunately, he did not return that trust or that love. The husband ended up straying, as in getting involved with another woman, and this breaks her heart. It breaks her heart and her mind, and in a fit of sorrow and grief, she takes her 3 children to a river and there drowns them, eventually drowning herself. And then it is said that her sorrow was so deep that even in death, she was not at rest, and she would wander near rivers and other bodies of water looking for her lost children. The stories, I should say, believed that she couldn't deal with what she had done. Hence, she began looking for her children. That is the basics of the story. However, the more I researched, the more I discovered that there are so many other stories of women brokenhearted, and in their despair they do something that we, the living, see as unimaginable, and end not only their lives but the lives of her children as well. Again, this is the basics of the story, but if we dive a bit deeper, we may find more to the story. We also find that these stories do not only occur in today's age, but they go back far, far, far back in time, much farther than I expected when I started learning about, well, specifically the historical Mexican roots of the Lady in White. First off, La Llorona translates to the Wailing Woman. And if you remember from episode 21, we discussed the Irish history of the Banshee, a woman in this story, a woman in black, wailing either as a warning of a soon-to-come death or a warning that you yourself, well, might meet your maker. If we study some of the Mexican history, and please know I am no scholar, wish I was though, but anyway, we learn that the Spanish invaded the land we now call Mexico in February 1519. During this time, it was not uncommon for a Spaniard soldierman to take a Mexican woman, sometimes as his secret lover, because back then, Mexican women were considered less than in the eyes of the Spanish. So, more times than not, let me backtrack. When a Spaniard soldierman would take a Mexican wife, or a Mexican woman, I should say, it really was not out of love, but out of a lack of options. When wars are waged, it's usually the men invading a territory, and they tend to leave their wives at home when they, go off invading. Honestly, I don't even think the word invade encompasses what a war does to the minds of a person or people. But in any event, one particular Spaniard soldier, who was considered a gentleman, took a Mexican woman as his mistress. Now, this was in secret because he had an image to uphold. Sadly, she believed, even though it was a secret love affair, she believed that it was love nonetheless. And she, again, felt deep down in her heart that one day he would make the relationship official and announce it to everybody by marrying her. So she puts all of her trust, all of her love in his hands. Now, I want to use the quotes. He was considered a quote-unquote upperclassman, a gentleman, if you prefer. So the social status of this Spaniard and the Mexican woman, there was a serious gap there. But it didn't matter. She loved him. She believed whatever he told her. And she really thought that this was the real thing. It lasted so long that she ended up having 3 children with him. Of course, she could never say who the father was, and unfortunately, you can pretty much bet that everybody in the area knew, but it was still sort of, a hush-hush thing. Unfortunately, the Spanish gentleman was obviously only with her until he was actually able to find a more suitable wife, which he does, and subsequently leaves the Mexican woman. But doesn't just leave her. In today's terms, we might say he ghosted her, no more contact. But it was more than that. He didn't just abandon her, ghost her, leave her. He also left her with her 3 children. He didn't even care about his own kids. So here she is, a poor woman of Mexico, mid-1500s, with 3 children from a secret romantic affair with a Spaniard man. A Spanish man. I don't want to insult. But who would help her? Who will she trust now? What's she gonna do? She got dumped big time, and this is usually where the ladies in white do the unthinkable. I mean, you have to imagine a woman back then. What is she gonna do? She fell for it. She fell for it hook, line, and sinker. She has 3 children. She's not going to get a job. Where's she going to get a job at? Everybody is now looking at her as some piece of trash who, I don't even know, is dumb enough to fall for it. Fall for the lies. It's not like she could go down to the local family services and apply for food stamps or get a job. And even if she did find some sort of work back there, who's going to watch her children and take care of them when she's off working? And what will happen to her children? Because at that time, children who had a Spanish father and a Mexican mother were looked at as, well, less than, I don't even want to say, but they were considered bastards, and they were not thought of, very much. I'll put it to you that way. As for the Spanish gentleman, all he had to say was, nope, she's lying. Those are not my kids. And off he went to marry his new wife, have his new kids, and, well, as for the Mexican woman, she was just an afterthought. Now, I suppose it had occurred that some Spanish invaders did fall in love with the Mexican woman that they met in Mexico and did marry them out of love. But it was definitely not the norm. In fact, there are plenty of circumstances when the Spanish gentleman would discover their mistress, slaves, Mexican women, what have you, would become pregnant. And these children were considered, again, inferior. The children were then raised as Spanish children and taught that their mother's roots, the Mexican heritage that their mother could have brought, to their lives, it was almost wiped out of existence. It wasn't talked about because in their eyes, any sort of Mexican heritage was just inferior to a Spanish history. Sorry. Okay. Well, let's get back to the women. I'm not here to debate who coined the phrase lady in white. There is some that say the oldest version does come from actually the Aztecs. And there is actually a story. The Aztecs had their own lady in white. This lady in white, however, was seen in dreams and was seen as a sort of banshee, actually. We have a story here of the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma II, who repeatedly had dreams that were foretelling the end of his reign. And there were also reports of people actually seeing a woman wandering in the streets at night, wailing, not too unsimilar to the Banshee of Ireland, but wailing that the emperor was going to be, that his time as emperor was coming to an end. Interesting similarities there, people. It is completely possible that the true origins of the Lady in White goes back farther than any written documents we have. We may never know. But so far, we do know that these women, they were wronged. They were innocent. They were taken advantage of. And at a time when they had no rights whatsoever. The Irish lore tells of a ghost, a woman who wanders near Charles Fort on Kinsale Harbor. In this story, there are no children, as this particular lady in question, unfortunately, she just did not have time. This lady in white, though, the story differs just a bit. She fell in love with an officer by the name of Sir Trevor Ashurst, and they were soon to be wed. She herself was the daughter of the commander of this Fort Charles, and her father, he was not a nice man when it came to his soldiers. He was strict by the book. One night, Sir Trevor had seen some flowers that he wanted to gather for his soon-to-be wife, his fiancée. And the story goes that he was talking to another officer who was on sentry duty. The officer said, "Hey, if you watch my post, I'll run over there," because actually these flowers are over a hill and kind of down on a cliff. So it was going to be a venture, but you know what? Sir Trevor, he loved his wife, or his fiancée, loved his fiancée, really wanted to get these flowers for her. And like I said, the officer who was on sentry duty said, "You know what? I will go and do this for you. I'll go get those flowers for you if you watch my post." And Sir Trevor said, "Oh, that's a fabulous idea." So the officer leaves to go gather the flowers, and Sir Trevor begins his nightly shift to man the post. Unfortunately, Sir Trevor is there for a long time. The other soldier did not return. Sir Trevor ends up falling asleep at his post. Sir Trevor's fiancée, her name was Wilful Warrender. And again, her father was a no-nonsense man when it came to his men and their duty. When he went out riding at night, he saw a man off in the distance one of his soldiers, and he saw that this soldier had fallen asleep at his post. Now, he got pissed. So he shouted out to the man, but the man, Sir Trevor, which was not aware of, was so deep in sleep he didn't wake up. So the commander again yelled. No response from Sir Trevor. Sir Trevor is out like a light. The commander decided, you know what? We're going to put an end to this. And he did. He ended up shooting the officer. And it was only after he shot from a distance, after he went up to see the man that he had just shot, did he realize that this is his future son-in-law. His daughter, Willful, she was in utter shock, and she never recovered from it. Sadly, she threw herself off one of the ramparts and into frigid waters and died. To this day, she is still seen. However, she is wearing a white dress. Many people are assuming that this was her wedding dress. It was white, or it is white. It is flowy. And most of the times, she is seen watching others who are sleeping. She's sort of watching over them. However, some believe she's watching over the sleeping soldiers. In fact, she's not just watching them, she's looking to see if one of them is her husband, her soon-to-be husband. These are rumors, though, and we can already kind of see there is a little bit of a difference. She did not have children, and excuse me, it wasn't that her husband betrayed her, future husband betrayed her. It was her father's anger that did such a thing. And interestingly, there are rumors that a lady in white will be seen pushing higher up soldiers, high-ranking soldiers, like captains and generals downstairs. Interesting turn of events there. Oh, speaking of turn of events, like I said, this is one we don't normally hear, but it is also believed that, this is a local's legend, that Willful's father felt the blame. He had shot his soon-to-be son-in-law. His daughter, in her despair and misery, flings herself off a cliff. He cannot handle himself. He can't handle what happened, so he ends up shooting himself. Now, these locals, this is a local story, so if you go there, if you live there, let me know if you've seen. The general has been seen walking around in his ghostly form, walking around town, sobbing uncontrollably. As I have not had the chance to go and visit this fort, I am not sure if this part of the story is true or not. So, like I said, if you've been in and around this area of Charles Fort in the Kinsale Harbor, let me know. Now, South America. Toxically beautiful jungles. It is a country that sadly is really struggling with turmoil, yet has some amazingly beautiful, alluring attractions about it. There is an art movement down there that it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's definitely a place I would love to visit. The life, the art, the jungles, the people. Even though there is turmoil down there, there is still a lot of beauty in there. So I hope that the old ways do not get lost during all of this, the fighting that's going on down there. But there is a lady in white story in South America. It is a part of their lore. She does have different names depending on the region. So, tell me what you think. Picture it, okay? You're an average dude making your way home. It was a great night. The stars are out. They're bright. They're shining. Creatures are creaturing in the jungle. Crickets are cricketing. Frogs are making that cool croaking sound. And you are on your way home, just enjoying everything. But let's face it, you have been lying. You have been lying to your woman who you say you love more than anything, more than life itself, but you are walking home from another woman's house. Maybe you've lied to this one as well. Who knows? And as you're walking, you come up to a body of water. Now you can ask any witch from any area, and they will all say that running water can carry more than just aquatic life. Yet for you, as you are walking alone along the water's edge, you catch a glimpse of something and it stops you in your tracks. It's a woman. Oh my God, she's a beautiful woman. And she's wearing such a sheer white gossamer cloth around her body that you can kind of make out her natural body contours. I mean, she might as well be naked, but she's just covered just enough that you can't see it. And you call out to her. But she doesn't stop. She's actually walking away, and you have to follow her. So you kind of picking up the pace. You call again for her to stop. Wait, I want to talk to you. And just when you think you've caught up to her, oh my gosh, she's all of a sudden even farther away. I mean, she's just kind of walking farther away, but you don't really see her feet moving. She's just close to you, and then boom, she's farther away. But oh my God, she's so beautiful. If you could just catch up to her and talk to her, maybe get her number, find out where she lives. Maybe you can convince her to meet up later. The sly dog that you are. So you try a few more times. Each time you're so close, and just like that, she's farther away, but not too far. So try again. You try again. Finally, you come to a rocky outcropping. And there she is. She has stopped. And she, just as beautiful from the distance as she is now that you're close up. And she's in arm's reach away. Just there under that shimmery white cloth. Her name is La Siwanava, but she was originally called Siwiwit, which means beautiful woman. She exists mostly in El Salvador, and during her time as a living woman, she was the epitome of beautiful. She even attracted the sights of the gods. Now, she is only irresistible to men like you. And you have been following her much farther than you realized. But here she is, and that doesn't matter. So you clear your throat. Lady. But when she turns around, that white cloth that was barely covering her slips away. Her long black hair turns gray, scraggly, knotted right before your eyes. She doesn't have that expected gentle, soft mouth with dark pools for eyes. No. It is the head of a horse's skull that turns to meet you. Those small, dainty, feminine feet, those become chicken feet. Think Baba Yaga. And her breasts, the ones I'm sure you pictured, oh so perfect, are now deformed. If you're smart, you'll start praying now. But instead, you try to run. Sadly, you don't get far. You don't make it home. In fact, the last thing you see is a black abyss. So campers, it looks like the ladies in white have a number of similarities that we can already see. The common thread here, broken trust, a broken heart, being lied to, being left to feel that you have no options and no way of getting out of this. And sadly, for some of these women, it didn't just end at a broken heart. It meant the end of their lifeline, end of their status in society at the time. The women couldn't work. They couldn't have property, so some of them even lost their homes. Who could they trust? They were left alone. They were terrified. No one can really say for sure what you would do in that circumstance unless it actually happens to you. Their virtue demolished. So wearing white could represent their desire to show that they were honest, they were pure, they were truthful, they were innocent. They were not the harlots, they were not the whores. They got duped. They trusted. And they suffered the consequences of trusting. Okay, camper. The fire is dying down, so how about we stop here? The second half of the Ladies in White of January will continue at the next campfire, which should be January 23rd. And keep an eye out for my next campfire quickie coming out next Thursday, which I share some of the tips. Well, it's more like, it's not really a rule, but it's called the rule of 2 when you go out camping and hiking. Again, it's more of a suggestion, but keep an eye out for that campfire quickie so you can learn more about this suggested rule of 2. For our next, for the next half, we will discuss some more stories of the ladies in white. We will actually discuss even a few of the ladies that are seen in colors other than white. Some blue, some red, and we'll talk about what those colors might represent. Remember, hiker, always trust your gut. If it doesn't feel safe, don't stay there. Pack up and bug out. Always get a chance to get out to the green. Always try to ground yourself. And I will see you at the next campfire. Happy camping!